Great. Okay.
Yeah, so we kind of picked up our focus on profiling again in January. We really started looking into it in the summer. Prior to that, we had used DidBook quite a long time ago, kind of pre-COVID years. And to be honest, it had really lost its focus, and we hadn't really been doing anything profiling wise for quite a wee while. And when we picked it up in the summer, the advice was kind of just do a wee bit of work with the pupils around being a bit more literate in the language that they would need to use, and wait for this new profiling part of My World of Work to be launched around January time. So when that was launched in January, we were on it pretty quickly as a kind of new developments were coming out with it. So I'm not sure where people are on the journey. We're not massively far in, but we've done bits of it. So I can kind of explain what's worked well, where the challenges have been. Interesting to see what the other schools say as well. Could you go on the next slide for me, please, Derek? Yeah, so just if there's anyone on here that hasn't seen it before, this is the part of the profiling section on My World of Work. We've had quite a lot of IT challenges as a local authority. Was that it's really mobile friendly. So it comes up really well on mobile phones, and that is exactly what the kids see, which has been a lifesaver, and it just makes it so much quicker to add things rather than waiting for netbooks to load up or whatever devices it is your school has. One of the things that we really appreciated as a school was the last slide there means they have to all link it to a skill. And I think that was really helpful because it just helps them think about, well, if I was in a job interview or if I was putting together a CV, how would I frame this achievement in terms of a skill that would be transferable to the workplace? So the interface, I think, got really good feedback from both pupils and staff in terms of it being easy to use. We'll go to the next slide. So previously, we had worked with our SDS careers advisor about focusing on certain skills in our classrooms and kind of coming back to that regularly, and we had lifted them from My World of Work. But what we've kind of found is the kids have then gone back on and they've not understood skills that are beyond our ones that we were teaching about. So we've actually, on the basis of the profiling, scrapped our skills framework, and we are now using all the skills that are coming up to try and just make it a bit more smooth between what they're doing in the classroom and what they're doing on the profiling. That was definitely a wee bit of a challenge for us, where we had pupils who were struggling to understand what those skills actually mean. So I think before maybe launching straight into putting achievements on the profile and linking it into those skills, it's probably worthwhile just kind of going into what those different things actually mean and what they would look like in practice, which is a really helpful thing to do anyway, just so they can frame things a little bit better when they're in the workplace. If you go to the next slide, Derek. These are just kind of 3 quotes from some of our BGE pupils when I was speaking to them about it in the last week. So they're all saying pretty similar things, that their favourite thing about it was just being able to see what their achievements are all in one place, and the kind of sense of pride and positivity that they're getting from that. They are really keen, as are we, for the next stage, which would be sending that home with their tracking. So it kind of becomes something that parents are also involved in. If we go to the next slide. This is a wee screenshot of one of our very successful pupils who has just gone through and added in all the different awards that he's got over the last wee while. I think that this is a great example of someone, but what was maybe a bit tricky was anyone that's not actually got a specific award. I think that people find it quite hard to get out of the mindset of an achievement has to be like a written down certificate. And we've tried a lot to talk about, no, it's maybe something you feel you've been successful in across different subjects. But they were quite stuck on that. And so when people's had a lot of awards, or they had music things out of school, they were able to do it. But for people who are just coming into school and, you know, having wee successes here and there, they weren't really making that connection there. Let me go to the next slide for me. This kind of worked out really well for us, and in some ways it was a wee bit of a coincidence. But we relaunched our vision and values, and we've changed it to reach, not with an ESCOB 7 theme tune at the moment, but that might come. So our respect, equity, ambition, community and health. And actually there's a new section on the profile that allows people to add a goal as well. And it allows for 5 goals. So we've actually got all our BGE pupils to add a goal for each of our 5 values. So they all have a respect goal, an equity goal, ambition, community and health. That did work really well, and it is something that they can come back and revisit and just think about, have I met that goal? Do I need to update it? The only thing that was maybe a wee bit of an issue for us was there's a cap in the number of characters you can use, and it's pretty low. I think it's about 70 characters, and some of our pupils wanted to add a wee bit more. So there's a wee bit of work around how we fit that into their profile. If we go to the next slide. So this is some wee examples. So like for respect, to listen to opinions from other classmates when I disagree, and for their health, aim to get at least 8 hours sleep before school days. And it's quite nice because they can link their goals to the different parts of their life that they sit in. So there's one, they can say one for hobbies or for school or for social, or for that one's habits and routines. We'll go to the next slide. So in terms of our tracking, this is our long-term goal, is we would like to be able to get the system speaking to each other a little bit better. That's a bit of a challenge because our tracking sits on DidBook, but our profiling obviously sits on My World of Work, and there's no real way to make them speak to each other aside from getting people to add in from their tracking where they've been successful or what some of their goals might be. We think in the long run, what we would really like to do is to be able to send it home at the same time. There is now a share function. I don't know if people have seen that, but the teachers can go in and find their share code. Pupils can then share their profiles, and they share it to your code. And you can download a PDF of what they've done. Which is really helpful because up until that point, I didn't really know what they were putting on it. I'm not sure how much was good quality and how much wasn't. And it just means that we can do a wee bit more feedback of, well, this is how you could improve this, that wasn't there before. Our kind of long-term aim would be that we would have something good quality to send home maybe towards the end of the academic year that could go with the last tracking report. And parents can see it, but there's obviously a bit of a challenge around how do we allow the key adults enough time to be able to read through that before it goes home, and make sure that it's kind of ready. Can you go to the next slide there? So our main challenges, I know I've kind of mentioned some of these already. I think the pupils really did struggle to understand what the different skills meant, but that was maybe a good thing actually, because they did need to go away and learn that. They were good at identifying where they'd had success, but it was still based on either awards or assessment results. So I got 90% in a maths test, and it was trying to make it a bit more holistic than that was tricky. Also in a secondary school setting, they kind of started leaning towards, I'm good at maths, I'm not good at English, and it's trying to pull them away from those discrete subjects and actually look at, no, you did this IDL thing, or you did this task that actually covered multiple skills and wasn't really about the discrete subject. And then just my last slide, please, Derek. So our next steps is, at the moment, the way we've organized this is it's in our PSE timeline. So it's the key adults that are setting time aside to try and update these profiles. And at the moment, it's kind of twice a term. In an ideal world, what we would like to do is embed it across all classroom teachers. So it would be a bit more flexible in terms of pupils would get a piece of work back and then they could just quickly go online and add it onto their profile. We're not quite at that point with having upskilled the classroom teachers to do that or to understand the systems that are there. That's our goal for next year. We want to continue using those 5 goals because it's really important to us in terms of our school values. We want to keep coming back and reviewing where the pupils are at in terms of whether they're meeting their goals or not. And then, as I said, it's that last little bit is just the closing the cycle there of how does everything speak to each other? How do we read what the pupils are writing? How do we communicate what they've got home, or is that something that they get as part of a BGE award system where it's printed off and it's in a nice wee kind of envelope? That's maybe what we're going to be working towards over the next year. So that's me. I'll jump off and then happy to answer any questions and things at the end.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Lynn, for that. It was really interesting just to hear all the experiences you've had and some of the things you've had to go through and work through as you've been implementing all of this. I'm going to hand over to Emma next. So, okay, perfect.
I feel like I've now got the easier job because a lot of what Armadale's already said would mirror to kind of similar things to us. So just a little background to who we are. So we're a small rural secondary school in Aberdeenshire, approximately 600 pupils. This year, all of our pupils have moved to having a 30-minute session every morning, which we call Crew, which is quite important because that's going to kind of feature into part of our plan of how we're using the profiles this year. Next slide. So across the last year, our pupils are used to using My World of Work in their PSE classes. Initially, our careers advisor comes in to help set up their accounts with them. Myself and our principal teacher of equity and skills, Mrs. Alessio Allen, attended some of the initial webinars where the kind of launch of the profile was put together. So we kind of took on that we were going to be the lead staff within the school to start kind of investigating it, trialing it out. We had some of the pupils involved in the sort of beta testing stage of various different parts as well. So last year, 2 of our year groups had some experience of using the profiles. So our first year classes all get a skills class. So that's 1 lesson a week. But this is about, I think, the 3rd or 4th year of us running the skills class. Initially, what they look at there is kind of upskilling themselves from an IT point of view. So all of our pupils are offered a Chromebook on loan from the school. So it's how to use the various different programs and things, and then also an introduction to the actual meta skills themselves. So when they then met the profiling, they do already have a pretty good understanding of what the 12 meta skills are all about. Our 3rd years, and this was a new move for the school just this past year, with the first year of having a double lesson of a class called Pathfinders, and through that they work on their employability award. And we introduced them to their the profiling as part of that, and they have 2 lessons a week in that. Last year it was a double period. This year we've moved to 2 single periods. Okay, next slide. In terms of the next stage for our school, so we're going to be looking at all pupils accessing and having a profile set up as of this year, and a lot of that is going to happen in their Crew time. So in fact, just yesterday after school, we had an all-staff session on various parts of Crew, and part of that was to introduce all our teaching staff to My World of Work, and the profile in particular. So they were given time to set up their own accounts, and using their staff emails, we suggested that they set it up as if they were a pupil. So if they have an S1 Crew class, they've said that they are an S1 pupil, so that when it comes to using it in Crew, the staff member can put up their profile, whether it is accurate to them or whether they're imagining that they are an S1 pupil. So our first years, again, will initially set up the profile in skills and PSE. Personal and social education. The S2s already have a profile started from last year. The S3s will do it again in Pathfinders. Our 4th years have already started, and our 5th and 6th years will set it up in Crew. And our plan is that twice a term, in Crew, there will be set times for the pupils to update their profiles, and there'll be different foci at different points in terms of, right, this time we want maybe the seniors to focus on the achievements, or maybe getting the juniors to focus on their goals, and sort of vice versa. We've in terms of kind of where are we going with it, some key parts are that our third years, this year, we're looking at them at the end of their S3, preparing what we call a passage presentation. So kind of marking the end of their junior school time, moving on to their senior school. And part of this is that they invite who they want to be guests to their sort of presentation in terms of what they've done in junior school, and a lot of the parts from their profile will input into that. Similarly, our 5th and 6th years at the start of their S5 or S6 each have a slot with their year head. And what we've said is as of next year, part of that discussions should be them sort of presenting their profile so far and going over their goals and aims for the future. The next few slides I've got is I've just kind of literally screen dumped what we used with our S3s. What we found is that if you've not looked at the system and the profile, it is so pupil friendly that they don't really need much instruction. Obviously, we're dealing with secondary school pupils, similar to Armandale, things like getting them to actually think about what are their achievements. I've learnt lots about the world of farming as they tell me as to what tasks they've carried out at home. I had one that their achievement was that they'd been involved in spraying slurry on a field, and for them that was an achievement because it's something they hadn't been involved in before. We find our juniors are better than our seniors because our seniors still focus, as you mentioned, on getting certain grades and tests. It was quite interesting when we did it with the staff. We had a huge variety of achievements in terms of getting a personal best in a 10k run, right down to getting to the bottom of the ironing pile, which we all agreed was a great achievement. So hopefully the fact that our whole staff have more of awareness now is going to help sort of pull out ideas from the pupils. The fact that it's done in their crew lesson, the idea of crew is that they've got another member of staff who sees them every morning, so the relationship's already built up. So the ones who are like, oh, I don't have any achievements, I know that I can say to one of my girls, well, but what about your football? How did your team get on? Were you part of that? You know, the girl who goes to crochet club, well, what have you managed to do? Have you managed to finish off that piece yet? And things like that. So yeah, feel free just to click through because I'm not going to teach you all how to suck eggs. It was just to kind of show you what we present to the pupils in terms of their learning intentions, success criteria, and then just kind of literally each slide that goes through pretty idiot proof, hopefully, at least it's S3 proof of kind of what we want them to do. It's not a one lesson and it's done. This probably rolled over a few lessons when we went, right, you've got it started, go back to it, do a bit more work. And our hope, similar to Armandale, is most of our, well, near enough all of our teaching staff are crew leads. So because our staff have all met it in crew, then it will be something that can be then fed into actual classroom lessons of, right, we've just done this particular presentation or assessment or something like that, that you then can get it updated through their time in classes as well, rather than just waiting for that moment in crew. We find it really useful with the skills because we've been quite skills focused since it was kind of launched. But what we found is the pupils found it difficult for us to say, right, how have you used communication? So by flipping it and saying, right, you have passed that level of music qualification, what skills did you use? So almost flipping it around to say that's the event that you've been involved in, or that's the hobby that you're involved in, or that's the achievement, what skills did you use, rather than saying this is the skill, how do you know that you've got it, kind of thing. And one of the best bits for us has been that you can now share the profile so the pupils can share them with the teachers, because last year we had a lot of send me that screenshot. So now being able to share it is great. So that's kind of us. And again, happy to hang around at the end and if there's any questions.
So hi everyone, my name's Andrea Gordon. I'm the head teacher at Rimbleton Primary School in Glenrothes in Fife. And joining me tonight, I'm not going to show you everyone because they will be part of this presentation, but I have Mike Rose, who is the principal teacher for the upper school. I have Terry Morrison, who is leading on digital cultures within the school. And I also have Claire Nisbet, who is the P7 class teacher. So we started our journey with My World of Work. It was almost accidental. It started to happen around about March of last academic year. As a school, we wanted a way of looking at the skills, but also looking at the children recognising their achievements and some kind of accreditation. I spoke to the education manager and she spoke to me about a pilot scheme that was happening and asked if I would be interested. So of course, this is exactly what we wanted as a school. So we jumped on that. So we began by looking at meta skills. We began by introducing meta skills to the children in assembly, in the upper and lower school assemblies, just kind of focusing on one skill at a time. And then during collegiate hours, we signposted staff to the Skills Development Scotland website so they could look at the meta skills and the progression, and also the characters as well for the younger children. So at this time, we decided that this would go hand in hand with My World of Work, because obviously meta skills are the skills that are affiliated with My World of Work. And then we started to introduce My World of Work and the meta skills to the upper school, into the primary sevens, and into what has now become our 5-part model, which you can see on the screen, but Claire will be talking about that later. Can you just go on to the next slide for me? I'm not quite. So the primary sevens last academic year, they began to log on to My World of Work. They use their Glow emails to enable them to do that. And if you press the Welcome Ollie part of the slide, it will show you how he went through himself, and he can talk through that with you. I don't know if you got the sound there.
I've got the sound, but I might need to reshare to get it to.
If not, don't what it's Ollie talking about how he set up his own profile and how he enjoyed using My World of Work.
Thanks. I'll see if I can get this working.
Thank you, Lorraine.
No problem.
So
right, the little options bit, and you want to go into tools and results. And you want to scroll down, and this is like all the like activities and like work you could do. So you could add achievements. Here's some of mine. You've got like all of those. You could add like what is, it could be like education, club, hobby, work. Then if you go back, you could use animal mean. You could find out what animal you are, and you could do your strengths, so you know what's your strengths, and you could do skills discovery, so you know like how much you would get paid for your work and all that. We add to My World of Work achievements every Friday.
So that continued throughout last academic year, beginning in March and continuing through. In conjunction with that, we also have a partnership with Fife College, and they have a meta skills group themselves at Fife College, where the youngsters are learning building trade, gardening, and then they associate the meta skills along with that. So we went up to Fife College, and the pupils at Fife College, plus our primary 7 pupils, were able to have a discussion about meta skills. So our children were able to see how it worked within the community and within My World of Work as well. And if you click onto the next slide, you can see the children there. They loved it. They thought it was great, and they absolutely recognised the importance of developing the meta skills and relating it to what goes on in the community and in further education. if you click onto the next slide, you will be able to hear some of the impact that this visit to Fife College and the focus on meta skills had on the children.
What's your favourite aspect of My World of Work?
I really like the skills discovery because you get to see what job you'd want to do when you're older, and you get to see how much you'll get paid.
My favourite thing about My World of Work is the achievement section, because you can write anything down of your achievements that you've achieved. What are the positives of using My World of Work?
It's nice having all your like meta skills and achievements and in one place, because like you'll never really forget them, and you could use them for like jobs when you're older.
Have you learned anything new through My World of Work?
I've learned what initiative means, and it means if something's not gone your way, then you can use your initiative and fix it to the way you want it to go.
I've learned I've got a leadership meta skill because I am captain of AIR.
That's that for that slide. So that brings us to the end of last academic year. This academic year, because the children were really enjoying looking at the meta skills, the My World of Work, we've incorporated it into our school improvement priority for this academic year. And we've also rolled it out to primary 5, 6 and primary 7. And what we are doing is we are working towards the Fife Diploma of Achievement, which is a recognition of when the children get to the end of primary 7, transitioning into S1. And it's about tracking their meta skills, it's about profiling, and it's also then about bringing that all together into a celebration, which is the Fife Diploma of Achievement. We are one school within a cluster. All of the other schools, the other 3 schools, are also incorporating this into the Fife Diploma of Achievement into their plans, into their school improvement plans, and it's also featuring into our cluster plan. So it's quite a big part of our transition for our primary 7s this academic year. If you could go on to the next slide, I'll hand over to my colleague, Mike Rose, who will just talk about how we track the meta skills over the 4 contexts of learning.
Yeah, hi everyone. When we started looking at this, we kind of took a 2-part look at it and decided that the opportunities that were being planned through the curriculum for the children would be logged by the teacher. So if they were writing buddy letters or if they were doing a Macmillan's coffee shop, we would enter that using the 4 contexts of learning through the teacher onto their sheet. And their separate My World of Work achievements, which are more personal to them, we would then upload them on a weekly basis after discussions with the children. The children also are going to be keeping their own personal ICT copy of this that they can upload for themselves, so they can track where they are on their road to the Fife Diploma. We built in the meta skills purely because that's what the school improvement's about. We colour coded them into 3 different areas, and depending on what activity or achievement that the children have completed, the children will then select, well, we think it's creativity, and then we will colour code that on their sheet. So each pupil, that's the class record you can see, each pupil has a record of what skills they've been achieving and what all the activities that they've done in the classroom from the teacher. And that's basically where we are at the moment. We're updating and changing it as we go. We're now looking at being a bit more precise in what skill it is and the meta skills that they're actually covering.
And how it aligns to My World of Work.
And how it aligns to My World of Work, yeah. So then we pass on to the next slide, and I will pass you over to Terry.
So we have decided to document through pictures and videos, and hopefully some people voice soon, our journey so far after coming back after the summer. So if you play this video, it'll show you the first couple of sessions that we've had this year. So creating an account, which was quite straightforward. The children would just enter their name and what school they were at, make their own password. And that was them into their personal profile, which they started to explore. And then session 2, we moved on to exploring career options. Quite a lot of children were surprised at what options they had. This was the favourite thing to type in, what's the salary that I might get when I'm older? And again, linking back to the meta skills. Lots of different options there. And this leads on nicely to our next slide where we got our parents involved. So I'll pass over to Claire for this slide.
Hi, so we had the parents in the morning for a shared start, and we decided to use My World of Work for the shared start that morning. So we start off, we have these big boards in our classroom. They're much bigger. We've got a big one up on the wall, and this looks at the 5-part model that we use for our lessons. So we started off by looking at the learning intention that we were expecting from the children that day. The children then came up with their success criteria. We look over the meta skills that the children think they're going to be using during that lesson. We look over which rights they think they're going to be using, the capacities. Then we talk about the learning and teaching, how we're going to do the learning and teaching, what kind of feedback they're going to get, and how we are going to do the plenary for the day. So the children had done a lesson previously looking at My World of Work, where they had added achievements and looked at their animals to find out which jobs would suit them in the future. So we decided that they would do that with their parents who came in. So their parents helped them add an achievement for the week, something that they'd done at home that they felt they had achieved. So the parents worked together with the children to do that. Then, of course, the children were desperate to find out what their parents' occupational animal would be. So the kids made their parents do the test and find out which animal they are. Then the parents and the children all explored the different job options that the children would like to do at this stage. So we had lots of different occupations. There were vets and nurses, dog groomers, pilots, a whole different array of occupations. The parents were really, really engaged. It was a really, really good lesson. Parents thoroughly enjoyed being in and working with their children to do My World of Work. If you go on to the next slide, you'll see that we did a little QR code for the parents who were coming in, and we asked the parents to give us some feedback on what they thought of My World of Work, how they thought it would help their children achieve. So these are just some of the questions that were asked and some of the comments that the parents came back with. So yeah, all the parents thought it was a really, really good session. They loved how they could add all their achievements and keep a note of all their achievements. Some of the parents were then desperate to find out how they could work on it with their children at home, because they wanted to do some work on it with their home. The parents were all really engaged with it, and most of them wanted to see how we could run with this and do more work with the parents and the children. So it was really, really successful. And I'll pass you back over to Andrea.
Hi, so sorry if you've been a bit dizzy with the turning round of the computers, but this is the last one. So the journey that we've had so far was the beginning last academic year, and then obviously everything being incorporated into the school improvement priorities, and then heading towards our end goal, which is the 5 Diploma of Achievement. And that you can see there on the screen. Those are the 3 aspects of the 5 Diploma of Achievement that we will be hoping our children will achieve at the end of this academic year. And within that, the profiling skills, that's where My World of Work really clearly sits. So thank you for listening. listening, and that if you have any questions, then I'm sure the others will be able to answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was really a fantastic presentation, and great to hear from all of the schools in terms of how they've been approaching this, and hearing the people voice and seeing how parents have been engaging there is just amazing as well. There's a couple of questions in the chat, but I was just keen to see if anyone would like to come on. I think we can unmute the microphones. Let me see if I can do that. But if anyone would like to come on, just stick a hand up. Or we can go to a couple of the questions that are maybe in the chat. So there was one there from Penny, just asking if anyone could share a list of examples of successes for primary children that maybe aren't a certificate or medal based. Just something to share with the pupils. Some examples. And I don't know if any of the folks that have been on talking today maybe have got ideas around that, or if anyone else in the call has.
Hi, I can perhaps, as far as we're concerned, our primary sevens would spend time on a Friday reflecting back on their learning experiences throughout the week. So they would look to see what experiences they had, what they felt they had achieved, and it would be those things that would be initially put into the My World of Work profile. So we went, for example, we went to a residential camp. The children were there for 2 nights. Some of them recognised that they didn't like being away from home, so that was an achievement for them. Some recognised that they had climbed to the top of the Tower of Death. That was an achievement for them. So it's actually the first point of call is looking into your actual curriculum and your curriculum rationale and recognising some of the achievements that the children naturally come across on a day-to-day, week-by-week nature.
Thank you, Andrea. There's also another question that you might